The United Nations have decided to finally find the truth. I should warn viewers, we're going to talk about the October 7 attacks. Some people may find the content distressing, but the United Nations have finally acknowledged that the October 7 massacre did feature Hamas terrorists raping and sexually torturing Israelis. Well, it's great. 5 months after the event, they've finally worked this out. Can you believe this? The UN didn't bother sending a team to investigate until January 29, almost 4 months after the attack. Well, I guess it's better late than never. Here's the UN envoy for sexual violence describing what they'd found.
We found clear and convincing information that sexual violence, including rape, sexualized torture, cruel, inhuman and degrading treatment, has been committed against captives. And we also have reasonable grounds to believe that such violence may still be ongoing against those still held in captivity.
So, what we've known for months, because we watched the Hamas GoPro videos, we listened to them call their parents and boast to them about what they had done. We heard testimonies from survivors, but the UN have finally caught up and agreed, yes, these vile crimes were committed. I do wonder, Liz, if it took the UN so long because they might have had to interview some of their own people who participated in the October 7 attack. We know that the UN agency, what is it? UNRWA. I always forget the acronym.
Yeah, but, we use it so often.
But I mean, they had numbers of people not just celebrating the attacks, but actually participating in them. So it's a difficult one for the UN to come to.
Yeah, indeed. The fact that they had people who participated in these massacres on the payroll. In fact, the IDF tell us that one of the Hamas tunnels that they've discovered is underneath the UNRWA headquarters in Gaza. What does that tell you about how implicated the UN is in what has occurred, in the atrocities that were committed on that terrible day? I don't think the importance of that can be overstated. No one's under any impression that the UN has been anything close to a friend to Israel ever, but we saw it in the face of these attacks in black and white, with Guterres saying, oh, you know, these things don't happen in a vacuum, with the fact that they took forever to recognise even violence against women, which is a very, you know, ambiguous, it's a very broad term. They took months and months to even acknowledge that that occurred. And we saw a blowout between our guys at the UN and members of our own parliaments here in Australia getting into barneys over that. Like, why have you not acknowledged this?
The interesting thing about this report, so we make fun of the UN for finally, you know, catching up with the rest of the world, but she did say that there was evidence that Hamas may still be committing similar atrocities. Doesn't that change the conversation then? And shouldn't the major focus be on hostages must be released when the UN, by their own admission, now say we believe those being held hostage at the moment are probably being sexually abused?
Of course, but there are no conditions under which Hamas wants to release those hostages. So the only way you get those hostages back is to get rid of Hamas. And yet you still have...
Should be the UN position now.
Of course, but you still have Western nations as soon as this week saying, the US has been saying, we are really hopeful of a ceasefire. You're never going to get a ceasefire under which Gaza, Hamas, hands back all those hostages. It just ain't gonna happen. The only way to end this war and the only way to get those hostages back is to finish the war. And that means defeating Hamas. Anyone who says otherwise is, well, they've got rocks in their head, to be perfectly honest.